Welcome back, Indy NXT Debrief, as we reflect on yet another double-header weekend at Mid-Ohio as the series heads towards the business end of the 2026 season. In this show, Archie, we're going to have a regular guest and a first-timer on the podcast.
Yes, indeed. Enzo Fittipaldi is back after his first ever weekend sweep. He took both wins at Mid-Ohio, and we introduce you for the first time to Jack Beeton, who took 2 podiums on his best weekend yet in Indy NXT.
It's an action-packed episode with great insight from both Enzo and Jack. But let's roll off with your double race winner, Enzo Fittipaldi. Here he is. So we're now joined by Enzo Fittipaldi, who won both the races at Mid-Ohio in a very impressive clean sweep weekend. Enzo, firstly, great to have you back on the show. And I mean, what a weekend, unbelievable result. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a very strong weekend. Had a lot of fun. And yeah, it was really a very good weekend for us.
So I guess a good place to start is right back at the beginning of the weekend, because I know qualifying it's not been bad for you, but you've also kind of not been qualifying right at the front. So I guess sweeping the pole positions at Mid-Ohio, what was different? What maybe have you been lacking in qualifying? And yeah, what changed this weekend?
I've just, we were able to kind of get the balance to where we wanted it already from the start of the weekend, and we were really quick already from the first laps. And I don't know. I don't think I really changed much. I just felt more comfortable with the car and the balance, and we were really strong right away. So very happy with with how it went, and then as well to be able to set the track record that as a driver is very special.
I guess on that, we've seen this year where you've raced really well, but some of the races you've won have been from quite far back and you generally haven't qualified as well. So kind of is there a relief to having a strong qualifying weekend after the fact that it's taken you some time to really adapt to qualifying this year?
Yeah, I knew Mid-Ohio was especially out of all tracks, I think Mid-Ohio is one of the ones where qualifying is everything. So I'm very happy we were able to capitalize on that. And and then starting from the front, it's a lot easier, right? Because the other races that we won, we were pretty far back and we had to drive through the field. So it makes everything just is more difficult. But yeah, I think it was really good, and we were able to show our true potential, and I think we're carrying good momentum now until the end of the season.
And just take us through that race one. Obviously, it was a bit stop-start at the start with all the yellow that came out and you had to deal with all those restarts. But you had start to finish as you did in race 2. So kind of just take us through what you were feeling in that first race.
Yeah, that first race, we had a lot of yellows. I think it was 3 or 4 safety cars. But I just felt we could have won that race by a good margin as well. Because after every restart, we would pull a gap of 2 seconds after 1 or 2 laps. So yeah, it definitely made my life a lot harder. But I feel like we controlled the race very well, and didn't make any mistakes at all weekend in any of the sessions, races. I mean, it was it was really a perfect weekend.
And you mentioned managing to kind of pull gaps after all of those restarts. So I guess when you're in the car, what are some of the kind of keys to getting good restarts in Indy NXT?
Just making sure you're on it on that first lap, knowing that the tires are going to be a bit cold in those first corners. So knowing how to drive, it's really easy to push a little bit too hard the entry and you lose the rear and you get a really bad exit. And then that's when the guy can get a run on you. So it's just really managing those first corners. Using the push to pass to your advantage. That's very important.
And obviously this was a 1, 2, 3, 4 finish for HMD as well. So I know you've obviously been there now for the majority of a season. So can you just talk a bit about the environment at the HMD team and ultimately kind of what you think fuels the successes like that 1, 2, 3, 4 finish that you had on Saturday?
The environment is very competitive, which I think is really good. I have very good teammates, and that pushes the team forwards in the right direction, So when you have competitive teammates, it really helps to work together and get everyone's feedback and be able to build a fast car every race week. And that's what I think we've had. And the environment is also very good. Everyone has a good relationship. The team is extremely motivated to win races. And as a driver, I mean, you can't ask for much more. You know, if there's a team that's just as hungry as you are to get wins, podiums, you know, then the success really happens. So I think that's what's, you know, that's what I felt with HMD. It's very, very nice to work with them, and I've really enjoyed every step of the way.
And obviously, the Mid-Ohio weekend, we were hearing it was pretty hot out there. So I guess when it's hot in the car, or I guess also, like, how do you prepare for the heat? And then when you are in the cockpit, how do you kind of manage it if it is like a really hot race weekend like you had at Mid-Ohio?
I mean, there's many things we can do training-wise at home, where I do at PitFit, which, you know, we do quite a lot of workouts with sauna training to be accustomed to the heat, and, you know, a lot of cardio. And I think the most important is knowing how your body works. So knowing what foods to eat before or during a race weekend, making sure you're ahead of your electrolytes, and just staying hydrated. And I think as long as if you are, you know, well in those areas, you shouldn't struggle at all. Like, I didn't really struggle, but it's very easy to miss one of those steps, and, you know, you could really have a difficult race struggling with the heat and everything.
At the end of the race, we saw you and Timet kind of going fastest lap, trying to get the fastest time. Like, is that just the right thing? Is there any kind of other incentive to get up over your teammate?
I mean, it's, you know, as a driver, you want to be the fastest on track. And I think me and Timic were very competitive with each other. And for sure, I wanted to have a better lap time than him at the end of the race, you know. Even though, you know, obviously I knew I was winning the race, but we're drivers and we want to beat each other in every part of the race. So, like I said, it's very good that we push each other this hard, and that's why we're you know, we're up front and fighting in the championship. So it's been great.
And as we pivot to race 2, started the pole once again and led the opening exchanges there. There obviously was a bit of a moment with you and Alessandro Di Tullio going into turn 4. I know he was a little bit unhappy at what happened there. So kind of what was your perspective on that little moment with him there?
Yeah, there was no contact at all. He tried to make a move around the outside. I kept my line, and you know, I even, if you rewatch the video, I left like half a car width of room still to the mid to exit. And I think I was extremely fair. I could have been a lot harder. It was my line. I mean, I was, you know, already half a car length ahead of him going into the corner. So yeah, it's racing. I think it just happens, you know, mistakes like that happen. And I feel like, you know, that's just racing, and we're fighting for the win, you know, so we're going to be racing each other hard.
And looking at the rest of race 2, after that moment, it was yellow 3. You ran in the lead into the rest of the race. So kind of what was your assessment of what happened in race 2? Was there kind of really any differences to what you felt after race 1?
Yeah, I mean, race 2, we just had a full green race, and I was able to really show my race speed. I was with used tires. I know there was like 4 guys in the top 10 that had new tires. But yeah, I think race 2 was, you know, a lot more, less yellows, 0 yellows. It was just a green all race. And then there I was able to show my speed and my race pace, and, you know, winning with almost basically a 13-second gap at the end. And then like, you know, 25 lap race is pretty strong, I think. So yeah, I'm very happy with that, and just now looking forward to Nashville.
And it's an interesting one. We hear a lot of sports people sometimes talk about being in like a flow state or being in the zone or something. I don't know whether that's how you necessarily felt on Sunday to pull that gap out, but is that kind of a feeling you've ever had? And when you are in that kind of groove where you are just kind of churning out fastest laps and what have you, like, how does that feel when you're in the car?
I mean, for me, no, I was just doing what I normally do. Like, I'm always good on race long distance. I'm really good at managing tires. I use all my tools to my advantage. So I was constantly, changing the bars in the car for, one corner I would go a bit stiffer, another corner a bit softer, changing the brake bias. So it's just the way I race. I mean, I don't just go out there and drive as fast as I can. I think about as well tire deck and everything. So yeah, I just think I had a clean race. I had clean air, and I was able to show what I could do, and I was very happy about that. And yeah, it's fun with these Indy NXT cars that you have these tools in the car. And I feel like there's so much you can do with these tools. I feel like many drivers don't use them as much as they should, because it is when you get in the flow and you're feeling good with the car. There's a lot you can do with it. If you're struggling with the front, or if you're struggling with the rears on entry, it's really cool that you have this ability to change kind of the setup for every corner.
And I'm kind of interested, like we see after, your poles or your wins, you celebrate a lot. And I know some people will obviously think, oh, you've been in F2 in the past, Indy NXT is a step down. And I'm not saying that's the case, but for people who might say that after you made this move, like, what is your reaction to people who might perceive it that way, or what have you?
For me, it's not a step down in competition. I've won many races in F2. I think I've done like 14 podiums. I think more than 4 or 5 front row starts. And yeah, I've competed against a lot of the top guys that are now in F1, and I've beat them many races in F2. And the competition here in the US is extremely high. It's very competitive. For sure, the Indy NXT car is not as powerful as a Formula 2 car, or not as fast in a optimal lap. The car from Formula 2 has more power, has a bit more downforce, this and that. But the racing in the US, in my opinion, is better. The tracks are more old school. There's less margin for mistakes. So I just feel like there's more from the driver. Like, there's more things that you can easily make a small mistake, and it's a lot more costly here in the US because there really is no margin for mistakes. If you are off, you're in the grass and then in the wall. Where in many tracks in Europe, you go off track and there's, a massive amount of runoff. So like, even if you spin, nothing's really going to happen in many tracks in Europe. So it's just a different approach. The tracks as well here in the US are a lot more bumpy. So it's just something to get used to. And yeah, I think it's I really enjoyed it. I've always watched IndyCar growing up. I lived in the States, and when my grandfather, racing the 500, I wasn't born or anything, but growing up, we would always watch IndyCar more than Formula One. So me being here, it's something that I've always dreamed about, and I'm extremely happy being in the road to Indy.
And I guess we kind of like to briefly pivot back to the Gateway weekend. It was your first one on oval since I heard you racing Bandoleros a very, very long time ago. So probably an extremely different environment there. So obviously I know you had a few mechanical issues, which really kind of hampered your weekend a little bit. But just generally, how did you feel racing on ovals in the next car for the first time? What did you kind of learn from that race, even if you couldn't compete right at the very front like you wished to?
Yeah, ovals, Gateway, I was P1 in the practice, and then we had some issues with the car, like fuel leak and stuff, so we didn't qualify, and then we had to start at the back. I was able to learn a lot starting from the back, learning how how to race on ovals. It's a whole nother profession, man. Like, it's just completely different to road course. It's It's very technical. It's almost like playing chess. Like you really have to plan out your moves, your overtakes, and you have to be very intelligent. And it is very difficult. Over racing is tough, and I love it. And I've been really enjoying the challenge to learn it. Um, and yeah, it's fast, man. It's super fast. And as a racing driver, that's amazing, right? Because you love the speed, you love the adrenaline. Um, so the oval racing is really something special, and I've really enjoyed my experiences with it up until now. And now the next race will be Nashville, which is a super speedway. So that will be really fast, and I'm looking forward to it.
And from this recent stretch of races since we last spoke to you, there was also Road America, and I think it was the first race, was it, where you had your issues and you kind of pulled off into the paddock, and it seemed like you got a bit lost according to the broadcast. So can you just talk us through, after you pulled off, what actually happened to kind of where you ended up, like how they recovered the car? And I've not heard you speak about this, so I just like
I'm
a bit of a
impressed
story
no one's
time.
asked me about it, because it's actually crazy what happened. So I pulled off, and then because the marshals were, I think, got confused or something. They were signaling me like I knew that I had to like stop right at the pit, whatever, at the escape road. But they were signaling me like whenever I stopped, they were like, no, like you got to keep going. So they were like, I think they got confused. And I obviously, for me, I always respect what the marshals say, and I'm going to do whatever they're telling me to do. So they were just pointing me to continue. And I was continuing on my way, and I'm like, man, I don't think this doesn't look right. I'm like driving, and then there's like a freaking barbecue in front of me, and I'm like, wait, this is not okay. I'm just gonna park it here. And then I parked it, and my engineer went on the radio and was like, man, where are you? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm in the pit. I'm in the fan zone.
How did you get back?
Then,
Did somebody drive you, or?
yeah, well, the team had to come in with I think with like a golf cart or something, and try and pull the car back. And there's like this really uphill at Road America, and the car just wasn't going up the hill because the golf cart wasn't strong enough. So yeah, a lot of people ended up like coming together to help us push the car get up the hill, because we needed to get it back to the pits. I mean, it was just a misunderstanding, and it was a funny experience. And yeah, it happened. I mean, yeah, it was. It was a funny experience looking at it now, right? I was definitely not happy, because I obviously was basically had a crash and was already many laps down. So pretty crazy, but that was fun.
I'm
I was
glad
going to
I
say, at least
asked.
you got a good story out of a pretty bad
Yeah.
situation, so that's pretty amusing. And I guess the last couple of races have been generally a bit more difficult for you before you went to Mid-High, with that race at Road America as well as Gateway. So when you're competing for a championship, kind of how frustrating are those weekends, and ultimately how do you kind of rebound from a difficult weekend whilst having that championship mentality?
It's just important to keep your head in the game, man. Like, it's tough. Racing it's a sport where there's no one's gonna feel bad for you. If you have a bad race, it is what it is. You just got to keep going. It's a cruel sport. It's tough, man. You have a lot more. Let's say when you have a lot more, I think, defeats in racing than victories, right? Because in racing, only one driver wins, and normally the grid has 25 drivers. So we're talking a less than 5% chance of winning, I guess, per driver, even less than that. And it's not like soccer or basketball where you have a 50-50 chance of winning, right, per team. So it is a very difficult sport, and it's just knowing, when you do have those tough weekends, learning from them, and putting everything together to bounce back on the next weekend. So it's important to not get lost and not be, outing yourself. You always have to be self-confident. I mean, you're racing in a sport where it's very competitive, and you have to believe you're the best. If not, there's no point in showing up. So that's just the way I look at it. And Yeah, it's the way I approach my races.
And you probably hate this question, but we kind of feel like we just have to ask it for people anyway. Looking ahead to the future, I know obviously you have races left in Indy NXT this season, but are you having any talks with IndyCar teams, for instance, about your future? Would you be interested in another year of Indy NXT if you, for instance, didn't win the championship? I kind of just want a bit of an insight into kind of what's going on in terms of looking ahead to the future at the moment.
Yeah, I wish I had answers to your questions for that. I mean, I know that right now our main focus, which everyone knows, is the Indy NXT Championship and finishing it off in a good way. Obviously, our goal is to be racing in IndyCar next year. But right now, the focus is to continue performing in Indy NXT and finish off the year well. And then after the year's over, we'll see what the future has in store for us. So yeah, that's all I can say right now. It's if I had more, I'd say more.
I guess it's a good time of season to have these sort of results where you're winning 2 races in Indy NXT. And obviously, from your perspective, you've now taken a pretty decent lead. The championship, obviously not comfortable yet, but you've opened up the biggest lead that we've had in several races now. So just kind of from your perspective, how important was it to have a weekend like this at this stage of the season as you look to fight for the championship?
Super important, honestly. Especially after the tough weekend we had at Road America. It was just all about bouncing back and arriving at Mid-Ohio and doing our best. So we knew it was a crucial weekend because it was going to be the last stint of the championship. You know, it was basically the start of the last leg of the championship. So starting it off like this is super important, and it sets us up well for the last part of the championship. So, you know, we're going into, I think, basically the final parts and with good momentum, good form. And not only like having the speed on track, but having that atmosphere in the team, the energy is so important because it's not just about how the performance or how the car balances on track. It's so important, the motivation each person in the team has. And I feel like we're more motivated than we've ever been. So this is great. And we just have to continue with good form until the end.
And that was obviously the good news of your weekend. We're going to get on to the bad news, which is the World Cup, which we've been speaking to every Indy NXT driver about so far in the last couple of weeks. Difficult couple of days. Brazil are knocked out. America are knocked out. Disappointed? Do you think there was more in there for either country?
Man, I was honestly like so sad. I was actually just after my race, I was driving back home. And I had it like on the radio and I was listening and man, like it was obviously I had like a great weekend. It was just had one and I started crying, man, when Brazil lost. It was a very sad moment, especially whenever I saw like Neymar started crying and stuff. And after his penalty kick, and it was, you know, most likely going to be his last game in ever playing in the World Cup. It was a very sad moment. But hey, that's sports. You know, it's tough. Brazil's an amazing team. They have probably the best history. They do have the best history in soccer and football. So, us as a country, football is like the biggest sport. It's like a religion. So yeah, it was a very sad moment for all of Brazil. But you know, 4 years from now, we're gonna have another shot at it, and everyone from Brazil is gonna have the same energy, and we're gonna be cheering as much as or even more as we were this year. So yeah, the energy from World Cup this year has been insane, man. Like everyone is watching. It's great. Everyone's like cheering for their teams, and it's honestly amazing to see.
Have you had a chance to go to any games yet, or all watching on TV? Because I've seen some of the paddock.
Well, we were planning to go on a game, but unfortunately, not anymore.
Who's your win prediction now? We're kind of getting to the business end of the tournament.
I'm gonna go with I'm cheering now until the end of the tournament, Belgium, because Thibaut Courtois is a friend of mine and he was my teammate in Formula One Esports back in 2020, and I still, you know, keep in touch with him on Instagram. So I'm definitely cheering for him.
Nice. Do you have like a Brazilian club that you support in football?
Yes, Palmeiras.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So just to finish off, Enzo, we've got Nashville coming up next, as we mentioned. So I guess just what's your outlook for that? Obviously, second oval race, as you mentioned earlier, it is pretty different to Gateway. So how are you feeling ahead of that weekend? And I guess it'll be fun to be in Nashville as well.
Yeah, super excited, man. Like the last oval test we did that was before Mid Ohio I was fastest, and that was at Milwaukee. So I'm feeling really good with the ovals. It's a super speedway, so it's a whole different ball game. I think the guy that beats still on the ovals is definitely going to be Miles Rowe. He's been the benchmark this year on ovals, so. Yeah, I think it's important we go there and, capitalize on a good free practice, get the car where we want it to be, and have a good qualifying and a good race. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun one, definitely to watch for the fans, because I rewatched the race from last year and it was really, really cool to watch it. So, yeah, I can't wait, and just can't wait for the weekend. Who are you guys playing next, right? Because you guys are obviously cheering for England.
Norway. So
Norway.
It would have been Brazil, which would have been entertaining for all of us on this call.
All right, I'll cheer for England then.
Exactly.
Nice.
You're a resident of Guildford, as you told us last time. So
I lived in Guildford for 3 years.
So you've got to love England a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to be rooting for England on the England versus Norway.
Correct answer. Hopefully we'll catch up with you sometime soon, Enzo. We'll have a debrief of that once England have won the World Cup prior to Nashville.
Perfect. Well, best of luck. Thank you, guys.
So that was Enzo. Good fun as always. Dan had more technical issues in the middle of that. He only seems to have technical issues when we have Enzo on. So that is quite amusing. But anyway, without further ado, let's move on to Jack Beeton. And you'll enjoy this one. He is quite a character.
So we're now joined by Jack Beeton, who had 2 podium finishes at Mid-Ohio in his best Indy NXT weekend so far to date. Jack, great to have you on the show. We apologise for getting you up early on a Saturday morning, but what have you been kind of since you were at Mid-Ohio?
Just been trying to reset, keep pushing. Obviously, we still have 5 races to go, so kept training, been in the gym, eating well, drinking well. Yeah, just been doing everything, been on the sim, trying to prepare for Nashville next week. It's going to be difficult. We've found that the ovals are a bit more tricky, and obviously I haven't grown up doing them in my career, so the sim's been really important, and hopefully we can have another good result next weekend.
So I don't know how much you remember of this, but we saw you at Indianapolis Raceway Park after the USF cars went around, and you showed us an alarm, which was your lock-in alarm following Indianapolis. So firstly, has it been a successful lock-in to this point so far, and what has your lock-in entailed?
I think it's been successful. I forgot about that alarm actually, but for some reason it doesn't show every day. I don't know why, but I think it's been going well. I mean, you can see the results since then have been starting to get better. At the start of the year, I was struggling. I knew I was good. We were making mistakes. The results weren't as we'd wanted to be. But I think now we're starting to get better. The lock-in's I got a sim, so I've been driving on the sim a bit. I'm always in the gym, but in the gym, and I think the locking's going all right, to be honest.
The results show it, so we'll say your locking's going well so far, but you kind of mentioned it was a pretty difficult start to the season. Obviously, you have a lot to learn, so was there kind of anything particularly difficult in the initial Indy NXT adaptation you had to get used to, any kind of unforeseen or surprise challenges you had to come across in those first few races?
I think the biggest thing that surprised me that I was struggling with was qualifying. The biggest problem at the start of the year was quality. When you're starting in P12, around there, you've got every car around you. It makes life so much more difficult, and stuff will go wrong. Crashes will happen, or you'll get pushed off the track. Well, when you're starting at the front, like we were in Mid-Ohio, and we finally got a good qualifying, there's a lot less that could go wrong. I only had 2 cars starting ahead of me, and everyone else was behind me, so I didn't have to worry about them. So it is just makes life a lot easier when you are starting at the front. I think that's the biggest thing that I've had to work on. That was the biggest struggle at the start of the year. Also just, learning the new car, the new tracks. We're driving on street circuits, which I haven't really done before. I've done Macau, but apart from that was in 2023, that was 3 years ago now. Apart from that, I haven't driven on a track with walls around me. So, just adapting to racing over here in the US, like the car's completely different, and I think it just took a while, but I think we're starting to get there.
So I guess both Road America and Mid Ohio were both kind of an upturn in terms of that qualifying that you mentioned. So specifically, like, what were some of the things you maybe struggled with in qualifying, and then I guess these last 2 weekends, like, what have maybe been the keys to turning it around a little bit?
I think it was really like not like much of a specific thing. It was just the fact that I'm getting more comfortable in the car now to be able to deliver a lap. Like before, we've had pace. We might be quick over the course of a few laps, but putting that one special lap together for qualifying, or two for when we need two, it just wasn't coming together. I was making mistakes, or maybe under pushing or over pushing. We're now just starting to get comfortable in the car and pushing at the limit. And it just, like, when it slows down and you're driving smoother, like, it just becomes easier and you go faster. I think, like, the fastest I ever go is when I get out of the car and, like, think it was easy almost. But yeah, I think we're on the right track. Obviously, I'm still not on pole. I'll do my best to try and get a few of them at the end of the year. DeTulio's had pretty much every pole this year. So he's a good reference to learn off. Obviously, we have the alliance with AJ Foyt, so we can see his data, and then I have a lot of other quick teammates like Enzo, Timek, Salvador. So we've all been working well together, and I think you can see that. I mean, as HMD, we had a 1, 2, 3, 4 in Mid Ohio. Like, that was really, really impressive. And I think it comes down to a lot. Obviously, the team's been working really well together. Also, the fact that us drivers are able to really push ourselves.
So I guess we'll talk about the 1, 2, 3, 4 race on Saturday, I guess it was. So your race specifically, you obviously got past D'Alba at the start, then you got passed by Timek. So yeah, just take us through that first race, which obviously results in your first podium as well.
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted the podium. I think, like, it was, I was fourth in Road America, one step off. So I knew I was like, okay, just want to get the podium, get that out of the way, and then I'll push for the wins later on. And obviously a win would have been nice, but didn't quite have the pace in the race, I found. But yeah, got past D'Alba on the start. Like, I think it was my first start this year that's been, like, really, really, really good. I was pretty much pushing Enzo through. D'Alba pushed me in the grass a little bit, but it was all right. It was good fun. Then yeah, went around the outside of him. Then was just sort of cruising. Obviously it was really hard to overtake, so just waiting for a bit of a safety car or something to give me the chance to get past Enzo. And then yeah, safety car restart. Struggled a bit with the tire temp.
So yeah, restart. Timek used a lot of push to pass down the back straight, and I saw he was quite far behind, so wasn't really expecting a move. And the next thing I knew, he was side by side with me. And even still, I would have had the position, but then Enzo broke really, really early, so I got stuck behind him. And Timek went around the outside of me, and I honestly thought he was going to pass Enzo as well. Like, I'm not sure what Enzo was doing, but it was okay. I think Timek was, at the end of the day, maybe a bit quicker in race one. Like, we saw that at the end of the race. Him and Enzo sort of drove away from me a little bit. But yeah, I think it was P3 was a good result, and I was still happy with the race after. Then, going into Sunday, we made a few changes to the setup. Obviously, I analyzed the data of the race, the video, trying to see what I could do better. And, we're trying to step it up for the next race. Obviously, we lost by 12 seconds the next race, but that was another thing. That was me just not pushing. I was trying to save the tires, and, I was waiting for a safety car, and it never happened. So, yeah.
And kind of going from overnight race 1 to race 2, obviously you said you've watched video. What kind of can you learn from watching that video going into another race? And kind of just take us through, once again, what you did in the second race and how that race was. Obviously, it's caution-free. It's a pretty intense one.
So, yeah, race 1, I mean, it was hot. Like, it was a struggling race in terms of, like, physically anyway. But, yeah, like, we had a bit of understeer in race 1. The car setup wasn't perfect. We went from almost the perfect car in quali to the balance not being as favorable in the race. Obviously, we're still pretty quick, but not as fast as my teammates out in front of me. So, we made a few changes to the car to help aid that. And then, I analyzed the data, seeing what, where I was losing the lap time compared to my quicker teammates. And then, yeah, went into race 2, reset, new confidence, see what we can do. And then I sort of knew DeTulio was going to go off. You could kind of tell. It's like, okay, you go around the outside there, you're gone. And that's what happened. But race 2 was a bit weird. Like, I struggled a lot the first few laps. I'm not sure. It was obviously a lot colder outside, which was nicer physically. But I guess that was the problem. Like, the first few laps, I was defending hard from Nikita. And I think the gap was 2.5 seconds to Enzo. And then at that point, I was like, okay, there's no point, pushing hard to catch him. There's probably going to be a safety car, and even if I do catch him, there's no guarantee I pass because it was really, really difficult to overtake on the weekend with the dirty air. So okay, wait for a safety car and sort of just try what Timek did the day before, and it never happened. So I wasn't really concerned with him driving away. I was just concerned about keeping the tires in a good window. It looks like I was really slow or he was really fast, which to be fair, he was really, really fast. But I think even still, I was second fastest on track. So yeah, it was all right.
And you mentioned the heat obviously on Saturday. Like, how is it racing in the heat? Can you just talk about how that is, and also like whether there's anything you can do to kind of adapt to that, or I guess prepare for it as well? I know you obviously do a lot of stuff in the gym, so yeah, just talk us through that.
It genuinely felt like we were in a sauna on the weekend. Like, I've been preparing in the sauna the week before, doing sauna, ice bath, just sort of as recovery, not as much for training. But yeah, nothing I think could have prepared us for how hot it was. Like, you open the visor to try and get some fresh air in, and it's just hot air. It's like, yeah, it was painful, but we're all in the same situation, right? And we're all athletes. This is what we want to do. I think even though it was hot, we're all still enjoying racing cars around Mid-Ohio. So it's all right. Like, at the end of the day, we all have to deal with it, but yeah, it was very difficult.
And something I suddenly thought of, I guess you aren't used to doing rolling starts as well from a lot of what you've done. So how have you found that? Like, what are some of the kind of keys of nailing that down? Because I know you mentioned like you maybe haven't had the best starts to some of these races. So yeah, how have you found that?
Yeah, it's difficult, like, compared to standing starts. Standing starts, like, a lot can go wrong, so I guess it's easier now to not stall. Like, stalling, sometimes, you're ready for a good race, and then, you don't move off the line, and there you go, that's race over. So I guess there's that part of it, which is a bit nicer. And then also, like, you're approaching turn one with a lot higher speed now, so I think you can do a bit more dive bombs, a bit more racing. You have a bit more tire temp because we have quite a few laps on the safety car to warm the tires. So really, you're pushing from turn one onwards for the rest of the race, where sometimes, with a standing start, you only have the one formation lap, and your tires, the first 2-3 laps are still coming up to temperature. So a lot of chaos can happen. But yeah, the rolling start's really hard. Honestly, like, I've sort of been treating it as a 2x2 safety car restart. Obviously, I've done safety car restarts in my past. But yeah, like, they're difficult, but I really enjoy them. It is good fun. I haven't started second on the grid yet, but I can't imagine that's going to be too easy. Like, you have to wait for the guy in front to go. I feel like that would be really, really difficult, but maybe it's not. We'll see.
And I guess we kind of like to take it back to the end of last year, where you kind of finished your season in Europe, and you obviously started doing a test for Indy NXT at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And kind of, why was the decision made at that point to move to Indy NXT coming into this season after spending your entire single-seater career in Europe up until that point?
Yeah, when did we make the decision? I don't remember exactly when, but last year Europe was going quite hard, and I've always wanted to come to IndyCar. I've always looked at the racing and said, like, okay, that's what I want to do. It's arguably the best racing on the planet. Like, they're always side by side. It's hard racing. It's good fun, and I can back everything that I said with how the season's gone so far. Obviously, I'm not in IndyCar. I'm in Indy NXT, the level below. But the racing is spectacular, and I've loved every moment of it. But yeah, sort of was looking at it like, okay, now is realistically, like, I think the perfect time to go to Indy NXT. We had the opportunity to do the rookie test in Autobahn with HMD, so we took that opportunity, and then I think the test went quite well. Realistically, I should have been quickest in the test, but I went off on the new tire run. I was quickest all day, so I ended up third. But the team was happy. I was really happy, and was looking. I think we signed the contract the next day, or we made a handshake the next day anyway. But yeah, no, I've really enjoyed it so far, and I'm very grateful, obviously, for the opportunity that I've been given by HMD, but also, my parents, my sponsors, for helping me get here. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world. I really like racing in America so far.
And obviously, you've had kind of a lot of change in terms of your life, really, in your teenage years. Obviously, moving over to Europe, now moving over to the US as well. So I guess, what have some of the sacrifices you've maybe felt you've had to make there? And just generally, what has the experience been of obviously quite a lot of moving about while you're still pretty young?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of sacrifices. Like, Australia is so far away, right? So at 15, it's pretty young. I packed all my bags and left all my friends, my family, essentially. Like, okay, maybe I'd have my mom or my dad come over for a little bit of time, but at the end of the day, I was still living on my own, really, at 15 years old, in a country where they don't even speak the same language as me. So, like, living in Italy, I mean, it was really cool. I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm grateful that my parents gave me the opportunity to have this. But yeah, like, there's obviously a lot of sacrifices. Like, I missed your prom, well, what else do they do in high school? The end of high school, but it's okay. Like, I'm sure when I look back at it, well, even now I look back and it's like, okay, so what? I miss some partying, some dances at school, but who cares? I'm driving race cars, right? It's pretty cool. Obviously, it's tough. Like, it can be lonely, moving away, even now moving to America. But I made a lot of friends here. I'm living in the same building, I think, as 10 other drivers or something. So you can imagine the noise complaints when we're on our sims together. But I'll probably go to lunch with Max Taylor later, hopefully get some food poisoning or something. But I mean, I've really enjoyed it. Obviously, there's a lot of sacrifices I've had to make, but I wouldn't change anything for the world.
Do you all sim race at the same time? Do you all participate in the same race?
Yeah, I should probably get on my sim more. You can see it right here. But
Fine.
maybe I'll get on it after. But we do try and do a fair bit.
Who's the quickest on the sim?
Max.
Max is the that doesn't surprise
100%.
me. I raced Max once. He took me out, so we got a bit of bad blood there. So
What car?
as an F4 around Brands Hatch, he took me out into Paddock Hill Bend. I wasn't very pleased, but
Oh, jeez.
yeah,
He's a hazard on there.
yeah, exactly.
I'm interested in this actually because I mean I guess it's quite a different. I mean it might not be, but the paddock over here, over in the States, compared to maybe in Europe, I know a lot of people speak about it being quite different. So I guess especially on that point, like how different over in the States have you found maybe the relationship with teammates or even your competitors compared to what you've been used to in Europe?
I think it's a lot more fun here so far. I feel like, we're all following our dreams, right? And I think sometimes in Europe, people would get lost in that and it would become like almost like a job, like was very political. I mean, we're racing each other on track, but realistically, like off the track, we should be able to be friends, right? But I feel like some of the time, you'd hold grudges because you had a bit of contact or it just wasn't as pleasant. Where here, I feel like, we're all following our journey. Like, you look back at go-karts when we all started. I started at, 7 years old. I was enjoying it then, right? And I feel like here, it's the same feeling where you're enjoying racing. And everyone's just friends so far here. Like, I don't feel like anyone hates each other. But then when we got on the track, the visor comes down. We race each other just as hard. Even harder almost. But it's also more respectful. I found the racing so far. Like, I've genuinely really enjoyed the racing here. But also, like, the paddock life, I've never been so happy racing in a race car. So it's really fun. But also, at the end of the day, it's still really professional and serious. Like, when we have to be an hour before the session warming up, like, we'll be warming up, locking in until Nicholas Daddy comes into your truck and he starts trying to throw balls at you or whatever. But he's good. I love him. But yeah.
Interesting. Like any other kind of big differences that you've found, or I guess maybe specifically as you mentioned the racing, like how has that maybe been different this year compared to what you've experienced in the past?
I've found like with the racing, I feel like they give less penalties here for hard racing. Like I feel like sometimes in Europe, you have a bit of contact, the other guy goes off, maybe they just slot in behind you and you get a 10-second penalty. Whereas here, you have a bit of contact in the middle of the corner, you both keep going, racing incident, like nothing happens with it, no one's got damage, and they won't call it a penalty. It's hard racing, and I really enjoy that. Like obviously, if someone goes in the wall, like yeah, they'll penalize it. They're good with that. I think the stewards are really good here. But I think also the racing feels more respectful. There's different rules with blocking. Like we can't move reactionary, we have to move before. So there's less crazy moving where it's like whoa, I feel like I'm gonna end up in a wall here. Down the middle of the straight because the guy's trying to weave in front of you. Where here it's like you can actually make moves, make dive bombs, and that's on the racing side. And then off the track, I've just found everyone is happier and enjoys it more. And I think like realistically, I think if you put me in a European race car right now, I think it'd be better because a happy person is always better at whatever they're doing than a sad person. I think it's the same in sports. When a driver is feeling happy, like I think they'll be at their best.
And we've seen a lot of drivers move over from Europe to Indy NXT in recent years. When two of your teammates, Timek and Enzo, made the move this year. We've seen plenty of other drivers in the field do that. So kind of from drivers racing Europe, what is the big appeal of kind of Indy NXT and eventually IndyCar for you guys to make quite a big life switch to America?
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to come as well, like especially next year and the next few years. I think they're just seeing it as a really good opportunity now. I think before everyone was sort of not blindsided, but so solely focused on this whole F1 dream. And, there's 22 cars on that grid and maybe one comes up per year and it's really, really difficult to get there. Where I think IndyCar it's not more achievable, but I think people can see it as being more realistic and it's an easier way to get there in terms of, F1 sometimes, you look at some drivers, you need so much funding to get there. Where here, like they support their drivers. There's the prize money if you win the championship. Obviously, you still have to find a bit of funding yourself, and that can be difficult. And it's only going to get more as more people with money come into the sport. But we can't change that. I think there's a less barrier of entry here, and I think people just see the racing's more fun. Sometimes in Europe, like it's not that enjoyable. The racing, it's like you either sit in a dirty air train, or you get pushed off and you spend 3 hours in a steward's room trying to argue it for one position. Like here, I think they're just seeing that it's more enjoyable, and well, that's what I would say. Obviously, I'm not everyone else, but that's what it's been like for me.
Growing up, did you watch much IndyCar? Kind of like, obviously you got Will Power representing the nation, but what kind of is the popularity of IndyCar in Australia in comparison to maybe F1, for example?
Obviously, it's not as big as F1, right? Like nothing is, but it's only getting bigger, especially since the whole like Fox takeover. The sport's just getting more and more globally recognized. I think they post the stats after every weekend of the viewership, and it's every weekend it's been more than the previous year. But I watched the Indy 500 when I was younger. I remember like when Fernando Alonso came over from F1 and raced it. Not saying I watched every race, but I'd see it on social media, the results, and obviously Will Power being Australian, he's from, where's he from? I think it's Toowoomba.
Toowoomba,
yeah,
that's it.
Which is only 2 hours away from me. I've done go-karting in Toowoomba plenty of times. Pretty quick there. But yeah, didn't like watch it as much as F1. Obviously, F1 is what I grew up watching, but I always saw it here and said like I want to be doing that.
So I take it this year, was that your first experience of the Indy 500?
Yeah, it was a really, really cool event. Like, I was amazed how they fit 450,000 people in there as a start. But then, the atmosphere, like, it was really surreal. I was getting goosebumps. And I think that was another moment where it's like, yeah, I really, really want to do this. And then, obviously, it was the closest finish in history, I believe. And I was on that start-finish straight. I was a bit too low, so I couldn't quite see, actually, at the result. I just heard all the screaming. But it was a really cool event. It was really, really special, and looking forward to the rest of them and hopefully racing in them.
So let's go off track for a second. Moving to America, has there been any cultural surprises or anything different which you thought was a bit weird since you've moved?
The food. I moved from Italy, right? I had spectacular food there. Here, I can't say the same. It's not like Italy. It's not that bad. But I find myself cooking a lot more here. Where there I was probably eating out like 2-3 times a day. It was really bad for my wallet. But that's probably the biggest thing. Then, yeah, I don't know. I really like America so far. The people are really passionate. Everyone in the Midwest is so nice. Like, people in Europe sometimes are pricks, and it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. You want to get on with your life. Like, we don't need to talk. I feel like, you're at a restaurant and the waiter will be complimenting, like, even if after they got their tip, right? Like, okay, that's another thing I don't really understand, but whatever, I'll go along with it. But, like, everyone's just so nice. And then you go to other parts of America, like Florida, Miami, for example, and it feels like, even in America, like, the number one language there is Spanish. And it's like, well, I'm in the same country still. And then Cali is another completely different story. I was just in San Fran 2 weeks ago, last week, watching the World Cup, and it's like, this is so different. Like, everyone's a prick again. But I really like the Midwest. Like, everyone's just so nice, and yeah, everyone's happy.
You'll be glad to know Timek also said the food was kind of the worst thing since you moved there. So you're not it's not exclusive to you at HMD.
He can't cook either though, so he's in real strife.
Oh,
He lives just above me.
oh wow. Do you get any like comments about your accent? Because when we came over, everyone was like was obsessed with our British accent. So I guess you must get the same as an Aussie.
Everyone thinks I'm British here. Like,
Really?
Everyone thought we were Aussie.
really? I mean, I lived a bit in London, but like not that much. I'm like, geez, I don't sound that British, surely.
No, not at all.
I sometimes a bit of Australian, but everyone's like, oh, I love your accent. Where are you from? Like, they love it.
Oh,
Where in London were you living?
I wasn't living there, but I spent like a lot of time there. What was it in Chiswick? You know, we do quite like Richmond area.
Yeah,
We did a lot of training camps. Man, with Benny, he was training. You know, be me, Noah Lyle. Who else do we have? There was a lot of us anyway.
Fine. Let's go on to maybe one of the biggest challenges that you had coming into this year, which was racing on ovals. So obviously you've had one race down at Gateway. So kind of how did you find that race as well as the various different tests you've done and your general adaptation to racing on ovals so far?
At the end of the day, like I think the best way to be on an oval is to simplify it. Like there's a lot to think about, and I think sometimes you can get caught up in thinking too much because it's 4 corners at the end of the day, and sometimes it's realistically 2 corners. Like it's really the gaps are really tight. There's only 2 corners to mess up. You mess up one, and geez, you're qualifying last now. So yeah, like I really enjoyed them so far. They're tough. At the end of the day, it's 2 high-speed corners, but I've been doing that my whole career. But yeah, so we missed the testing in April for most of it because of my shoulder injury that I got in Nashville. Did about 20 laps in Nashville in the test, and then had a big shunt and dislocate my shoulder. So then missed the Gateway test, missed the Mid-Ohio test, but was lucky it was a time of the season when I didn't miss any racing. But then like going into Gateway, St. Louis, where everyone else had tested, and I was going in, okay, we've got 1 practice session and we're straight into qualifying. That weekend was hard. I was honestly guessing what to do. Like qualifying, I just went into the corner. It's like, all right, I've never had this much grip. I haven't been on new tires like this. No idea what it's going to be like, but let's go. And it wasn't that bad. I think in the race, like I made some mistakes. Not mistakes, but didn't drive at my best, and I killed the front right tire. So I died the rest of the race because of that. I think I was back in like 17th at one point, and I used a bit of racecraft and got back to 11th, and the safety car restarts to the end. But like that was hard. But now I've actually had a bit of time to do some testing. Like we had the Milwaukee test 2 weeks ago, and I was P1 in the morning. So that was all right. And I think I did the day P5. So like we're getting better. Next week Nashville, it's going to be it's completely different in Milwaukee. Milwaukee's a little track. Nashville's flat out the whole way. So yeah, let's see. I enjoy racing on them. Everyone describes it sort of like a game of chess. Like you need to try and stay in the slipstream, go a bit out of the slipstream in the corners just for a bit of clean air, like half a front wing out. It's really cool. I mean, I've got my coach now, Connor Daly, who's really, really good on ovals, so that helps. Having him, yelling at me on the radio that I'm turning in too early. Nah, he's a really good coach, actually. He doesn't yell at me. He's nice. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Nashville, then Milwaukee at the end of the year.
So, I mean, people always talk about the danger with ovals, or often talk about the danger of ovals, people who maybe haven't done them. So, for you to have an experience like that so early on where you dislocate your shoulder and get injured, like, does that do anything to the mindset? And then I guess ultimately, how do you kind of put that behind you and just rebound from something like that happening?
Shit happens, right? Like, every time we get in the car, we know we're taking a risk. Like, we know something can go wrong. And I feel like on ovals, well, yeah, you're just going faster. So, maybe the risk is slightly greater, but at the end of the day, you crash every 1 in 500 or 1,000 laps. Like can happen to anyone. Even Salvador crashed, and I think he won there the year before. At least he was starting on pole or something. He was good anyway. But yeah, shit happens, and like got to put it past me now. Can't think about it, right? Like maybe the first 5 laps in practice next week, I might take it a bit more cautious, but like. We got to bounce back racing. Like it's all about bouncing back from adversity. And yeah, there's a big bump in Nashville. That's why the crash happened. Sort of in the middle of 3-4, there's a little bump that you hit, and I hit it with a bit too much steering lock, and boom, gone. So got to learn from that. Need to have the rotation done a bit earlier and have my hands straighter on the bump and not crash. And yeah, easy.
Did you have any kind of preconceived notions of what it might be like on ovals, and anything that then, since you've kind of driven on them, that might have surprised you specifically compared to what you expected beforehand?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember what I was thinking. I just remember being really excited and like really open-minded to, the team. Obviously, they've been racing on ovals. Well, the team's been having cars on ovals for many, many years, and I was coming in brand new. I didn't want to have any ego and be like, oh, I should know how to do this. Can't be that hard. We're only turning left. But yeah, like I think I was really, really open-minded. And I think that's, paid off. I've been on quite a steep learning curve. I think learned quite fast. And so have my other teammates. Enzo and Timek are in the same boat, and Enzo's really quick on them. And I think Timek's pretty decent as well, right? Enzo's quick all the time. Can't beat him now. But yeah, no, like, I think we've learned quite well, and the team's been really, really supportive with that. They've helped a lot. But yeah, now it's at the end of the day, it's 2 high-speed corners, right? Like, just got to simplify it a little bit.
You mentioned your coaching from Mr. Connor Daly. Can I just tell us about how that relationship came around in the first place, and what is he kind of helping you with the most?
So how did it come around? It was a funny story. My dad, like, we struggled in Gateway, right? Like, okay, we maybe need to learn a bit more. My dad, I think, messaged him on Facebook. So he said, are you interested in coaching? And Connor said, like, hell yeah, let's do it. And then since then, like, he's been coaching me on all the ovals. So 2 more rounds to go. He was there at the Milwaukee test, and I think it was really, really helping. He was standing up there next to my spotter. I don't think he's allowed to talk on the radio, so I won't say if he was or not. But he was telling the spotters to tell me that I was maybe turning in too early or change my line a bit. Obviously, you do a lot of laps on ovals, right? Like, I think in the test we did 250 to 300 laps in Milwaukee 2 weeks ago. It's also tiring, right? But it means that having someone in my ear telling me, like, that's done a lot of experience, turning left, I'm able to change it lap by lap, and it just makes the learning so much quicker. Like, rather than, okay, on a road course, I know what I'm doing by now, right? I've been driving them on them my whole career. Obviously, I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but usually, like now as well, getting more comfortable in the car, I can change it lap by lap. Like, okay, I can do this, that felt good, that felt bad. But on oval, sometimes it's like, okay, that felt good, but maybe it was slow, or this feels bad, maybe it's good. So it's like, I think on oval, it's really important to turn as late as you can, just keep going later into the corner. And he was telling me, he's like, all right, Enzo's still going in the car later, and then it's like, all right, that looks good. So yeah, I mean, I think it's been really beneficial having that, just in real time coaching. I think that's the biggest thing. But.
So I guess looking forward to the remainder of the season, I say the remainder of the season, there's not really that long left now, which is kind of mad to think about. But what are you kind of still looking to improve, if anything specifically, and any kind of big goals? I guess you're looking just to take that step further and win a race now. So yeah, what are you kind of looking forward to?
I don't think, like, right now there's anything in specific. I think it's just, refining all the finer details. I mean, we're not that far off, right? Like, I qualified second in group, and yeah, also in the last 3 races I've started third. So, like, there's not that much, maybe it was 1/10 in qualifying. So it's finding that extra 10th, refining the finer details. To be fair, Mid-Ohio, I actually made a mistake on my best lap, and I should have been on pole, but it's okay. I was happy with third anyway. But yeah, I think the goal now, try and win a race, get on pole, put it together. Obviously, we have 2 ovals to go, and then 3 races on road courses, 2 in Laguna. So yeah, I think just goal, finish top 5 in the championship. We've been getting better over the year. I think it's realistic. Like, it's not too far away. Obviously, it's going to be really, really difficult. I think the gap's about 50 points, but I'll do my best, and if I have a win or 2 along the way, that'd be perfect. And then, yeah, going into next year with high confidence to, hopefully contend for the championship.
So yeah, I was going to ask about that. Kind of this season, if you kind of just viewed it as kind of really laying the foundations almost for a second season, or what's your perspective kind of been on that?
I think coming in, like, we knew it'd sort of be a 2-year deal. Like, if I came and won the first year, great, like, that's amazing. But we sort of knew, like, okay, it's new tracks, new cars, everything's different, right? Like, realistically, it's going to be a 2-year program. So this year was all about learning. And I think, like you can see, I think it's been quite, if the season ended today, I'd be happy with it. I think it's been quite successful in terms of just the rate of progression. Like, I didn't need to win this year. It's more about next year, right? So I think, starting the year, crashing almost, well, not crashing, but I was last, like, at one point in the race, in 6 of the first, 8 races, because I would have a spin or something and then had to fight through. Where now I'm, finishing on the podium 2 races in a weekend. So I think, the rate of progression's been really good, and I'll try and win next year.
Let's speak about the World Cup, because it's World Cup season. I've seen plenty of images of you with an Australia shirt on, one of the rare occasions you do have a shirt on, which is good to see. See, you went to one of the games earlier on the tournament as well. So kind of how much you've been watching it? Have you been engaging with the World Cup so far?
I've been watching it less now. Australia's gone, but England's playing today, right?
Yes.
Right, Norway.
That'll be it. I'm betting on Norway. No, I'm joking. But no, I've been really enjoying it. Obviously, it's been really cool that it's here. So I was able to fly there to San Fran to go watch. Who was it? It was Paraguay versus Australia. It was the most boring game, I think, of the World Cup, and it was 0-0 because they're both playing for a tie. But no, it's really cool. Like, I love how everyone's coming together, even in over here in America. Soccer is not soccer or football, whatever they want to call it here. It's not their number one sport, right? Like, but they're all still getting behind it. They all got their what do you call it?
Patriotism.
That word.
Yeah, that one.
Sorry, mind blank. But all the patriotism, they're following their country, flying their flags around, and I think it's just a really, really cool event. It's annoying it only happens once every 4 years, but I always love watching it. I think my first football game I ever watched was the World Cup, maybe 2018. I mean, I never watched, not in person. I just mean on the TV. But it's not the biggest sport in Australia. We have so many sports, but even still, I think we're good underdogs in this tournament. Realistically, we don't have the best team on paper. I think we always outperform what we should be doing. So it was good.
How would you rate them? What's the feedback in Australia? Good tournament, bad tournament, could have done better? What was the perspective?
I think everyone's mad how it ended. We subbed off our goalkeeper. That's been realistically the man of the tournament so far, Patrick Beach. And then they subbed him off for Matt Ryan, who, to be fair, on paper is better and should have been better, but I think everyone was really mad about that. And then, we didn't really have anyone for penalties, right? We had an 18-year-old centre-back taking a penalty in the 4th one, which was obviously really important, but, he did an amazing job. Everyone from Australia, I think, did a really good job, but, it didn't, obviously. We should have won, right? Come on.
Have you got a prediction for who's going to win it now? There's obviously one right answer in our eyes, but any prediction?
I mean, I've been saying, I think, since the start of the tournament, I think it'll be France versus Argentina in the final. I don't know. I think France is probably going to win that, but I hope Argentina, because that would be cool. I'm a Messi fan. But
cool.
I don't know if it's coming home, boys. Let's see.
We'll see tonight. We'll see tonight. Take it game by game.
That's it. To round off, I'm intrigued about this Indy NXT driver house. Who is the worst person to live with in the Indy NXT field?
So thank God it's an apartment building, so we don't have everyone else's codes, but we spend a lot of time together. Oh, jeez. Timek. You go into... I'd feel bad if I had to live with him. You look at his apartment, and he has genuinely a bed and a sim. He has a 2-bedroom apartment, and the other bedroom has nothing. He gets a roll-out mattress if he has someone staying over. But
Really
I actually have a bit of furniture. Who else? I haven't been in Murray's apartment. Max has got the biggest one here, so his is where we always go, and we get a lot of noise complaints, so I feel bad for him. But, Timek's got to be the worst one.
Nice.
The basicness of Timek really doesn't surprise me, so I think that's a very good anecdote to end on. Jack, it's been great to chat to you. Obviously, congratulations on your mid-high performance once again, and look, for another weekend like that, I'm sure you'll be back on the show for the end of the year. If not, that's plenty of times next year.
Thank you. I'll try my best.
Thanks to both Jack and Enzo for their time this week. Both very entertaining guests of the show. Let's hope for viewership's sake they're going to have them back on later, because they are very fun to have on. But as always, Archie, let's recap on all the action that we had this weekend at Mid-Ohio. And let's, as always, start off with what happened in qualifying.
Yes, and qualifying really marked the start of what was a historic weekend for HMD Motorsports. After only one previous front row this season, which is kind of hard to believe, and also 7 races without qualifying any better than 6th. Enzo Fittipaldi took his first 2 pole positions, as you will have heard him discuss before. For race 1, this meant that he led an HMD 1, 2, 3, 4 in qualifying, with actually quite a shock front row start for Salvador D'Alba ahead of Beeton and Timek Kuharczyk. D'Alba had actually started no better than 6th all season. It had been a pretty tough one as he transitioned from Andretti to HMD, and this meant that AJ Foyt Racing's Alessandro De Tullio had a run of 9 successive front row starts since the season opener in St. Petersburg, slashed by D'Alba. He only started 6th for race 1 behind the pre-weekend championship leader Nikita Johnson for Cape Motorsports powered by Ed Carpenter Racing. Row 4 was where you found your first Andretti Global cars. Lockie Hughes leading Josh Pearson. Max Taylor was 10th, and ahead of him was Able Motorsports' Max Garcia. For race 2, which is set by the driver's second quickest laps in qualifying, which I think is a bit divisive between drivers, actually. I think some of them may prefer having a second qualifying session, but that's just how it works with the constraints of the weekend. Normal service was kind of resumed for De Tullio. He took his 10th front row start of the season, behind Fittipaldi, of course, and once again ahead of an unchanged row 2 of Beeton and Kuharczyk, who again were ahead of Johnson, and this time Josh Pearson pushing his way onto the 3rd row. D'Alba could only manage 8th for race 2 after his front row start for race 1, and he shared row 4 with an improving Garcia, who was 7th actually for race 2. Cusick Morgan Motorsports' JM Correa edged into the top 10 of the race 2 starting order. He was 9th ahead of Taylor, who was again 10th, and Hughes, who was only 11th. And of note from qualifying, Miles Rowe for Able Motorsports suffered a mechanical issue in qualifying, which meant that he had his best lap deleted for causing a yellow flag and started 23rd for both races. So more Rowe recovery drives were initiated. Dan, let's go on to the opening race, and by far the most eventful race of the weekend.
Race 1 took place on Saturday, and Fittipaldi comfortably kept his lead on the start, whilst behind him, Beeton manoeuvred his way past D'Alba for a crucial overtake into 2nd place. Timek Kuharczyk and Lockie Hughes were battling for 4th. Johnson dropped down to 7th whilst this was all going on, meaning HMD were currently 1, 2, 3, and 4 to start the race. There was trouble for one of the early season championship contenders as Max Taylor misjudged his braking when he was trying to pass Johnson around the outside into turn 2, which meant he was stuck in the gravel and once again found himself at the back of the field, which we've seen a couple of times recently for Taylor. No caution came out, but we did have a caution a couple of laps later when Nicholas Satt's Cusick Morgan Motorsports had a mechanical issue just after turn 2. Funnily enough, as soon as the caution came out, he got back going again, but the yellow had to come out as cars were approaching him whilst he was stopped on the side. The race restarted on lap 8, and Kuharczyk was the big mover, getting D'Alba out of turn 2, and then got beaten on the run down to turn 4 to move from 4th to 2nd on the restart. The yellow would come out soon after, though, as Nolan Alda, who was sitting in for Ricardo Escoto this weekend at Hooker's Hollinger Racing, stopped on track with a mechanical issue. The race restarted on lap 15, and Fittipaldi once again comfortably led on the restart, whilst there was a bit of a mess further back as Nicholas Montero of AJ Foyt Racing spun James Rowe in turn 2, but both were able to continue without further troubles. We went yellow again on lap 22 when JM Correa, who was running inside the top 10 at this point, suffered an incident at turn 12. He was able to continue once the team realised there was no great damage, but he finished 1 lap down in 22nd. When we went green once again, Fittipaldi once again had a very good start with Kuharczyk unable to match the Brazilian there. Overtaking was very difficult throughout this entire race, which meant there was a little movement kind of outside of those restarts, and the restarts were big opportunities, but no pressure from that point for Fittipaldi. He ran away for his 3rd victory of 2026 and cement himself in the championship picture once again after a difficult Road America weekend. Kuharczyk ended up finishing 2nd, yet another podium for him in his rookie season, whilst Beeton earned his first career podium in 3rd place. And D'Alba had a season's best result in 4th, rounding out a very, very impressive HMD 1, 2, 3, 4 finish with plenty of pictures of them on the podium. The best non-HMD driver was Lockie Hughes. He finished in 5th with Alessandro De Tullio in 6th. Johnson finished 7th in the end with Garcia in 8th. Rowe had a very nice recovery drive, actually. He finished 9th in the end all the way from 23rd, making important moves on restarts, as that was your really only opportunity. Talking of recovery drive, Taylor went from last. He ended up finishing in the top 10. He kind of moved through the field with Rowe kind of right next to each other, but were not unable to make significant progress kind of after the midway point once they got through a lot of the back markers. So that's your top 10. Archie, take us through race 2. There's not much to do, unfortunately, on this occasion.
Yeah, a lot of the main drama really in race 2 came really at the very outset on lap 2 after Fittipaldi had held the lead pretty nicely at the start. He came under pretty intense challenge from D'Autulio, who made quite an audacious outside attempt to pass in turn 4, ran off track, kind of had a half spin as he tried to rejoin. He dropped to 8th, which actually was where he ended up finishing the race, but he was not best pleased. I mean, he was pretty animated with his timing stand after the race, but I think it was an ambitious move. You heard Fittipaldi's take on that earlier. So, yeah, that was about all of the action, really. It had promoted Beeton up to 2nd, Johnson up to 3rd. Johnson had actually got past Kaharchik on the initial start. And once again, it was really just a story of passing being pretty tough. But Correa was one who managed to make things work a little bit on lap 8. Actually, by lap 8, he was past Kaharchik and up to 4th. He'd actually started the race down in 9th, as I mentioned earlier. So that was an impressive drive, but yeah, there wasn't much else that happened there. It ran without caution. It was the first race actually in 6 that's had run without stoppage, which really meant that Fittipaldi could show his true pace and came under no real threat. And by the checkered flag, he actually had a lead of 12.7 seconds on Beeton. The biggest previous win margin of the season had been 2.2 seconds for Miles Rowe, who had come last to first at Gateway, which is pretty impressive reflection of that drive as well, that he could come back to front and make his way so far clear of the field on that occasion. This is really a marker, I would say, of how competitive this season has been, and also how many cautions we've had, but we'll focus more on the former. But anyway, it confirmed a sweep of the weekend for Fittipaldi to vault back into the championship lead and really get his season back on track after really not his fault having a couple of errant weekends there, with the mechanical and Gateway qualifying limiting his weekend, and also then Road America having a mechanical failure early on in the opening race. In 2nd place, Beeton bettered what had been his career best 3rd place finish on Saturday. Johnson finished 3rd in the end, which was his 6th podium of the season. It has been a very consistent season for Johnson, whose 6 podiums are actually his only top 5 results, but he has otherwise still finished no lower than 7th. Correa and Kuharchik ended up rounding out the top 5 after there was no real shift in that early order. Pearson, Garcia, D'Autulio, Taylor, and Hughes rounded out the top 10. D'Alba could only manage 11th on this occasion after what was a bit of a scruffier Sunday after a return to form of sorts on Saturday. Rowe on this occasion could only recover to 16th in an all-green race. Every driver bar Alexander Kariba for Hunkers Hollinger Racing managed to finish the race on the lead lap. He had a mechanical failure, I believe, on the last lap, which didn't actually interfere with the race, but meant that he did not take the checkered flag. So, Dan, where does this leave us in the championship?
Well, Fittipaldi's dominant weekend opens up a little bit of a lead in championship standings. His gap now is 17 points to Kaharchik, and that's the longest lead I feel like we've had in quite a while this season. It's been very closely knit, but decent advantage for Fittipaldi coming into the final stretch of races, although it's not too comfortable. It's still very close at the top with Kaharchik, who said just 17 points behind. Johnson is the other one in the top 3, as we know, who have been really battling for the championship lead all season. He's only 3 points behind Kaharchik and 20 points behind Fittipaldi. Now, after that, you're looking at a big gap of 80 points to Max Taylor. So I kind of feel like now we've kind of established Fittipaldi, Kaharchik, and Johnson will be the 3 fighting for the championship. One of those 3 will be the champion. It is just too big of a gap behind them for anybody to really catch up. So those are your main ones, but let's look behind with Taylor, 80 points behind Johnson, as we said. Once again, another weekend with big points loss for Taylor through just a little error. Hughes is 12 points behind his teammate. He had a pretty decent weekend, the best Andretti driver throughout the weekend. D'Autulio is 17 points behind Hughes, but 129 of the championship lead. So it is quite a gap from 6th to 1st, whilst Rowe is a further 2 points behind D'Autulio. Then there's a little gap back to Beeton, who's on 275 points. Obviously, he's gained a few positions this weekend given his double podium, but he is still 156 of the championship lead. He's 11 ahead of JM Correa in 9th, with Josh Pearson in 10th, further 10 behind Correa. Nannini drops out of the top 10 after he won at Road America. So the show hits Nashville this weekend. It is a single header race, as has been the case for all ovals this season. Ricardo Escoto, who we said last week was not racing at Mid-Ohio, as we said he got replaced by Noah Nalla. He will be racing in FIA Formula 3 this weekend. No replacement has been announced, but if we were to make educated guesses, even Sander Amorvi has tested for the team on an oval recently and raced at Gateway on the oval. So maybe keep your eye out for him this weekend. But stay tuned on Hunkers' social channels to see who they're going to announce. But otherwise, obviously, another very important weekend as we hit crunch time in the season. There's only a couple of weekends to go. We only have Nashville, Portland, Milwaukee, and Laguna Seca doubleheader to decide a champion. So it all gets very, very tight now at this point of the season. We obviously thank Enzo and Jack once again for the time on the show this week. Always great to catch up with them both, as always. But for this time, thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.